It's a strange feeling, isn't it, that moment you realize something is fundamentally broken? For me, it wasn't a single, dramatic explosion. It was more like a slow leak, a tiny crack that grew over time until the whole dam was ready to burst. It started subtly, as these things often do. A late night at the office that felt just a little too frequent. A phone call taken in another room, the voice hushed just a little too low. Little things you could easily explain away, and believe me, I did. I became a master architect of excuses, building elaborate justifications for every red flag. He's just stressed, he's working hard for us. I'm just being paranoid. The distance between us started to feel like a physical space, a vast, empty canyon right in the middle of our king-sized bed. We'd lie there, side by side, but miles apart. The easy laughter we once shared was replaced by a tense, polite silence. The comfortable intimacy, the shorthand language that only two people in love understand, it all just evaporated. It was like living with a ghost, a phantom of the man I had married. I'd try to bridge the gap. I'd ask about his day and get one-word answers. I'd suggest a date night, only to be told he was too tired. I felt myself shrinking, becoming smaller and smaller, trying not to take up too much space, not to be a bother. The real turning point, the moment the denial finally shattered, came on a completely ordinary Tuesday. He was in the shower, and his phone, which was usually glued to his hand, was sitting on the nightstand. It buzzed, and then it buzzed again. A name I didn't recognize flashed on the screen. It wasn't the name that got me, though. It was the message preview that followed. Just 3 words. Last night was ... double quotes followed by a string of emojis I won't even describe. My heart didn't just sink, it plummeted. It felt like the floor had opened up beneath me and I was free falling. In that instant, every lie I had told myself, every excuse I had built, came crashing down around me. I stood there, frozen, just staring at that screen. The water was still running in the bathroom. It felt like time had stopped. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could feel was this cold, hollowing certainty. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. This was happening. My first instinct was to confront him, to scream, to throw the phone at the wall. But a different, colder instinct took over. I put the phone back down, exactly where I found it. I walked out of the bedroom, down the stairs, and sat on the living room sofa. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. When he came downstairs, dressed for work, he kissed my forehead and said, "Have a good day, honey." And I just looked at him and said, "You too." That was the beginning of the end, but it wasn't a quick end. I lived with the knowledge for weeks. I watched him, a spectator in my own life. I saw the secret smiles when he looked at his phone. I noticed the new cologne he started wearing, the sudden interest in going to the gym. Every detail was a fresh stab of pain. I was walking on a tightrope of pretending everything was fine, and the effort was exhausting. It felt like I was holding my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop, even though I was the one who had to drop it. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was a shell of myself, haunted by a truth I was too scared to face out loud. Why didn't I just confront him? That's the question everyone asks. It's the question I asked myself 1,000 times. Fear, I guess. Fear of the explosion. Fear of the life we had built together turning to ash. Fear of being alone, and a small, pathetic part of me was still hoping. Hoping I was wrong, even when I knew I wasn't. Hoping he would wake up one day and choose me, choose us. But hope can be a poison when you're clinging to something that's already dead. I was holding on so tightly to the memory of what we were, I couldn't see the reality of what we had become. The breaking point was supposed to be a celebration. Our anniversary, I spent all day cooking his favorite meal. I got dressed up. I lit candles. I was trying to recreate a memory, to force the magic back into our lives. He came home late. Of course, he'd forgotten. He walked in, saw the table, and the look on his face wasn't guilt or surprise. It was annoyance. He had other plans, that was it. That was the moment I couldn't take another inch of the pain. I couldn't pretend for one more second. The dam finally broke. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I was strangely calm. I just looked at him and said, "You need to tell me the truth. He tried to deny it, of course. The usual gaslighting, you're being crazy, you're imagining things. But I didn't back down. For the first time in months, I found my voice. I laid out every piece of evidence, every late night, every secret phone call, every little lie. I watched the denial crumble from his face, replaced by a sullen, defeated acceptance. There were no apologies, no remorse, just the cold, hard truth hanging in the air between us. He admitted everything. It had been going on for almost a year, a co-worker. It was a classic, pathetic cliché. The conversation that followed is a blur of numb pain. He didn't fight for us. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just seemed relieved that the secret was out. And that was, perhaps, the most painful part of it all. The realization that I wasn't just betrayed. I was disposable, our years together, our home, our life. It meant so little that he was willing to throw it all away, and he wasn't even sad about it. He packed a bag that night and left, just like that. The silence he left behind was deafening. The days and weeks that followed were the hardest of my life. I was adrift in a sea of grief, anger, and confusion. Friends and family rallied around me, but at night, alone in that big, empty bed, the loneliness was a physical weight. I had to learn how to be me again. Without the S, it was a slow, painful process. There were days I couldn't get out of bed. There were days I cried until I had no tears left. But slowly, inch by inch, I started to heal. I started rediscovering the person I was before she was a we. I reconnected with old friends. I picked up hobbies I had abandoned. I started therapy, which was a lifesaver. It helped me understand that his betrayal wasn't a reflection of my worth. It was a reflection of his own brokenness. It's been a few years now. The pain is no longer a gaping wound. It's a scar, a reminder of what I survived. I look back at that woman, the one who was too scared to speak up, who made herself small to avoid a confrontation, and I feel a deep sense of compassion for her. She was just trying to hold on, but I'm so proud of the woman she became. The woman who found her voice, who chose herself, and who walked through fire and came out stronger on the other side. My story started with infidelity, but it doesn't end there. It ends with resilience, it ends with hope, and it ends with me, whole and happy on my own terms. If you're going through something similar, know this, you are not alone, and you are stronger than you think. The end of one story is just the beginning of another. Thank you for listening to mine.